Testing, testing, one, two, three. Testing, testing, one, two, three. Okay, great. Awesome. It's working. Yeah, this is gonna be a bit crazy. Just- Okay, let's do this then. This is the PhD journey vlog day one. I have to say it's a little crazy thinking about this. Mm, maybe maybe what I can do is let's start with explaining why I have all these links up here. Oh, can't actually see that. Maybe that down. There you go. All these links up here. These different YouTube links. That's what I'm going to talk about, and then maybe introduce a little bit of my PhD research as a PhD student right now, and then the purpose. I'll introduce the purpose of this vlog, what it does for my research from a qualitative standpoint, especially understanding where my lineage or my ideas come from, because they come from somewhere and they are inspired by everything. And nothing new is created, it is simply resynthesized. That's my belief. And so I think to kick things off, usually when I'm doing these ideation sessions, I tend to have music. So what I'm gonna do actually is hopefully YouTube allows me to do this, but I am gonna go and play a little. So I've got all these links. Just want to get the previous one also listening to. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, I'll put this very low. So, and then maybe edit it a little bit so you can hear me. Yeah, so hopefully you can still hear me. I'm just gonna put it much lower over here. So, just a little in the background. Okay, so I normally listen to music when I'm working, and I'm sure you all and researching. I'm sure you all connect with that. Hopefully, okay. All right, let's start. Let's restart this. Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Timothy Lim, and I'm a first-year PhD student at De Montfort University. And I'm just gonna move this up a little bit because I realized the stream cuts it off a little bit. There you go. Okay, so my name is Timothy Lim. I'm a first-year PhD student at De Montfort University, and I'm doing a Midlands 4 Cities funded PhD study with the company. It's called Collaborative Doctor Award with the entertainment company called Holovis. They do amazing work at theme parks, and this really has to do. The research has to do with social extended reality. So I'm researching into how the different and emerging technologies, virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, how these come together to create what we know as extended reality. And this is really inspired by Milgram and Cuscino, and my background as a game developer and interactive media or slash creative technologist. And so what this means is that I'm taking my ability to make games and interactive art installations into play. So that's using Unity Game Engine, Unreal Game Engine, Touch Designer, P5JS, web apps that we create through Next.js, or anything really that creates interactive, immersive experiences, and then bring into bear the audio-visual technologies, the complex AVs available. So these would be your LED walls, these would be your different sound systems. If you go to any theater, this also includes like musical theater, stage performances, or even event venues, you'd see a lot of complex AV nowadays, very accessible LED walls, very accessible setups for, spatial audio as well, with different speakers available, and this brings into a multidisciplinary team and experience, and that's really where I'm researching into, right? And the idea that I have, this grand theory, is that, well, extended reality more than just a technological construct, extended reality is social, in the sense that um, when I was running my own tech companies and being creative director, one of the toughest things was always the technological adoption gap, like this gap in between when developing a new technology. Remember, extended reality technologies, or augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality are new technologies, and then how does the public kind of use that? There's this gap, right? And famously, like Nintendo has this ideology of utilizing what they call withered technology, so WITHERED, withered technology, which is essentially just technology that's always been used, right? And this started with the Game Boy, it's continued with Nintendo, Switch, and all. It's technology that we already use and are familiar with, to reduce that gap. Now, building onto that, essentially extended reality, all these new technologies pose an ability to actually change how we see the world, how we perceive reality. And that's where I bring in this constructivist view. So that's Guber and Lincoln, and Berger and Luckman, if you're more on the academic side, constructivist views. And maybe for the general viewers, you're probably lost in thinking like, what is this guy talking about? So I have this visual available on the screen, and so let's go about it. So essentially, to simplify things, I'm looking from the start, which is human cognition. Yeah, it's very what we call a human-centered perspective or Anthropocene kind of perspective. But I have to start from somewhere where I can actually see out. So, for example, I can talk about my dog, and I want to perceive their reality, but I can't actually perceive their reality because I don't have the means to actually access their perception of reality, at least not at home or in the research labs that I have access to. So I have to start from the human, right? And the human being me. And of course, you who are watching this stream, you would have your own perspective of me. I would have my own perspective of you. I think that sets good basis for starting this off. So we all have individual human cognitions. That's the belief and the worldview I have. And essentially, we have created a separation between our digital environment and our physical environment. And what that means is, so you right now are viewing me, what we call telepresence in the digital environment. I'm live streaming to you, but you can see I have a physical environment. I have this window here, and I have these little it's a porcelain thing. I have physicality. I'm not I'm not an artificial intelligence that's speaking to you or that's generated runtime. I'm real in that sense. So there's this physical and digital environment. However, increasingly there's more mixed reality. For example, I would consider things like VTubers as part of mixed reality, that they utilize the human movement to bring to life a virtual character. And I think one of the key parts about this is really just the ability for realities to blur, the physicality of our space and the virtuality of the digital environment is starting to come together, and that's where you find this portion, right? But it also takes our social cognition, our belief that actually in generative AI and real-time data, through that, what it can create is, for example, imagine I am now with my whole self true to you. If you see me in real life, I would look exactly the same. But what if I'm not me, right? So what if I use generative AI filter, for example? Maybe the new Google VO3, and I'm actually able to change my view, right? And in real time, I could become a cyborg. I could become a robot. I could be any change. So like my form becomes immutable, becomes the ability to change. And so the interaction between then the real time data. So for example, I posit, what if generative AI, so you're watching me, but maybe you don't like the way I look, maybe you don't like the way I sound, and through that real-time data, through, for example, live chat, through the ability for, well, anything really, right? Any data that's coming in, maybe just browsing my blogs or reading about me and your comments as well. What if you didn't like who I am and what I stand for? Perhaps real-time data could change that, could help it, make it more understandable to you, and through generative AI, recreate my being to present you something that's, well, amenable or something that you would agree with, right? So in that sense, you would be okay with that extended reality. Would you be, comfortable with a reality that's tailored to you, to personalize to you, right? And so the idea is basically extend reality beyond just being technological constructs that puts it to you, oh, I have this digital environment, which is virtual reality, and you immerse yourself in it, or a physical environment, perhaps, augmented by AR, augmented reality, to display, information that you could not normally see from the digital world, and then mixed reality where both worlds collide, where you're able to be immersed in a physical environment and yet have a virtual environment appearing. Perhaps you don't like the way your park looks like, and so you have a pirate ship appear, and you're now battling pirates, or talking or acting like a pirate, perhaps helping you role play and integrate into a society that perhaps likes just one singular viewpoint, just one singular view of the world, and something that's too empirical, something that's too fixed in that sense. And I think in a world where there's so many avenues of how we communicate, there's writing, there's music, there's art, there's, even types of writing, so academic writing, creative writing, there's, speeches that we give, there's politics, there's so many things that's going on, and so much information being fed. We're hyper connected, but yet seemingly feeling more isolated than ever. And increasingly generative AI, it's not the problem with generative AI. It's the trust, right? And trust is not quantifiable. It's social. And that brings me to, what if we had a world where our technology changed our social realities? Now that's why I wanted to start this live stream, because putting this into words isn't easy. Now, I made this in Canva, but really what I want to talk about today is things that have been on my mind. And what's been on my mind is, well, I come from a games development background, which means in addition to playing lots of games, and I'll be talking about one game, Clair Obscura Expedition 33 today. I'm also very involved with technology as a whole. Games use a lot of new technologies, right? So, I mean, if you're considering AI right now, games have been utilizing AI, even rudimentary, for a long time. And, these would be evolutionary algorithms, it would be adversarial, could be a lot of different things inside there, right? And things to bring it alive. I think rather it's not the complexity of the technology that's important, but how we perceive the sociality of the technology as humans. And so that's why I'm bringing all these up, because beyond games is very interconnected also with the idea of film. So you've got TV, some was talking about Andor as well, Nerza as an animation. Animation, if you play a game anytime, there's tons of animations in it, either motion capture, physical, actually hand animated stuff, and of course Japanese anime as well. And you're probably going to wonder why politics comes into play. I'm specifically talking about globalization in there, not the politics. And yeah, and I think, of course, games exist not in an isolation, but as a whole, entertainment continues our current context. And so you can think of this as, we have the skills to utilize technology. We have the, surrounding context as well. And as developers, we make choices in the way we want to design our worlds, our interactions. Okay, so that's the start. And we're going to walk through this. And today I'm going to go over a new release from Netflix called K-pop Demon Hunters. This is made by the I think they have it over there. The animators, the studio behind the Spider-Verse animation. Sorry, I was just good. get distracted. Trying to find it actually over here, but it's a very new story, and what I think it's just 18 hours ago it just came out. Over here, 18 hours, 706,000 views already, right? Netflix has a position in the entertainment industry as a mover and shaker and driver of entertainment, right? And its capital and its ability to actually get creators to develop for it. So that was indie films, there was indie animations, but now working with larger studios to develop out, independent IP, intellectual property is very important. So yeah, this is what I want to look for. This is the, from Netflix, Sony Pictures Entertainment, the studio behind Spider-Man, Across the Spider-Verse. And you know how powerful this can be, because with validation from larger corporations and the capital from there, you're actually able to get much larger intellectual properties that individual indies can do. There's a lot of nuance in it. It's sometimes not fair. Some of these contracts can be tough, yes, but what I want to focus on more is how we leverage new technology, how we leverage, these, and into, you can imagine perhaps K-pop Demon Hunters as a game as well, right? Like a lot of people point out, I think that there you go, from Jonathan Hollingworth 4146, they say this is giving KDA vibes from League of Legends. And if you're not sure what KDA is, it's a from League of Legends, they developed this pop star group, right? And you can kind of see those vibes there. But now they're Demon Hunters, right? And you can actually watch the video on your own. Now I'll let it run in the background. And you can kind of see the art style influence, the aesthetics, but also the design choices. But then afterwards, kind of imagine it also more than just a, a animation. It can be a video game. It can be what the idea of, like, you would think of a multiverse or IP verse, in the sense that there's video games, there are animations, movies, live act. If it gets to a certain point, there'll be live actions, and then at a certain rate, it would actually lead into like more storybooks and stuff. So stories have that power, right? But stories need to be trusted in. They need to be believed in to work, and that's a big social element as well. Now, it brings me to this point. If you haven't watched the latest Tencent, is it by Tencent? I believe so. Yeah, I think it is by Tencent. Let me see. To Be Hero X. Who funded this? Oh, it's by sorry. So Bilibili, right? So Bilibili's latest animation, To Be Hero X, it's amazing because it actually goes through the idea that trust value creates heroes, right? And one of the things I really wanted to talk about is trust, right? That's where we trust in technology. Technology doesn't destroy the world. It can offer us more tools at the same time. We trust that technology empowers us, multiplies us as humans, not enslaves us. So there's a implicit trust in the technology we have. It's a social contract that we have with technology as well. It's just that it's not really stated explicitly, individually, perhaps. I mean, we talk about privacy. We talk about, for example, when I go to, like, let's say New York Times, right? Any website actually right now. Let's just click New York Times, right? And you go over there, bam, manage privacy preferences. You've got accept, reject, manage preferences over here. There's Google, and we trust our cookies aren't being used against us. We trust, basically that the powers that be in the world, the governments, the giant corporations, everything, that the system itself, it's that our new innovations will contribute somehow to an empowerment of ourselves as individuals. And yet at the same time, you can imagine trust as a resource, and trust, if trust could be quantified, right now it's very qualitative. If trust could be quantified, as shown in, I'm not sure if they show it over here, but in the animation, if you watch it, they actually look at the wrist and they actually have a number that shows their trust value. You can kind of look at that as like a follower count as well. And I think a big part about this is, yeah, like the animation says, anyone can become a hero. Hero, as a designation, hero, villain, everything in between. It doesn't really matter. What matters is the idea that you can gain power from belief, right? And that 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 is something that I think in today's world is an affordance of our extended reality. Right? And now I have no data to back this up. What I'm doing here is free flowing with what I'm thinking. This is just a free flow vlog, and I hope this can lead to something, right? The transcription from this will be passed through perhaps generative AI. I'll probably look over it later, and from there we can take out different, ideas and takeaways and stuff, and perhaps you have your own takeaways as well from all of this rambling. But one thing that always strikes me with like To Be Hero X or some sort of animation or even manhwa or webtoon comic, anything with the idea to have power scaling, right? It's always a competition. I mean, if you get to it, there's this idea of competition over cooperation. Even in To Be Hero Access, they have like a hero tower, and you get increasing benefits based on the hero score. From I think the hero nice starts from like top 10. He wants to aim for to be number X, which is I guess number 1. And I haven't finished watching the whole thing, and I hope I don't give too many spoilers. But essentially, at the very top, you are supposed to be most powerful, the highest trust rating, more people believe in you. But one thing that I like about To Be Hero X is that the belief from their supporters also affects your power, also affects the way you become a hero or how your power manifests as well. And so, when I was watching the K-pop Demon Hunters, I like the fact that, I'm not sure if they're doing anything special with their powers in terms of like them being K-pop, but you can kind of see like, their souls are glowing, and there's ripples over here stating that people have power. And that's true. I mean, in our today's world, I think celebrities do have a certain amount of power, but they're just not that they are still, unlike this, there's no magical power that suddenly manifests in them, and then now you can, be like Iron Man or Iron Fist, or, have magic like Doctor Strange. You're not a superhero, but you can get benefits that are different from the usual person in this world, right? So that could be increased access to funding, increase access, which would be capital, your loans, and the terms you pay back as well, and then more capital, more access to resources, more access to expertise, experts, and provides a greater foundation. So there is a reinforcement loop that happens there as you get stronger and more famous and more well known, or rather, the better way to put it, rather being famous, is that people believe and trust in you. It doesn't matter if other people say that you are not good. It's just a weightage of it, right? So that's the social extended reality version of it. It's the same as, I can say that a certain technology isn't good, but if enough people believe in it, then that technology becomes good. I think if you're part of the Warhammer 40k fandom, there's this idea, I think it's a fan theory, that the orcs actually don't know how to utilize technology, just believe it works, and so the technology works, right? And I love that, because in some ways, I'm trying to find that meme. Yeah, there you go. Designs and constructs unique, innovative technology on the spot with garbage and scrap, whose equipment battle machines offer strong competition to counterparts. There's no grounds for being cunning. you cannot innovate. There's tech heresy. And there's the idea that there you go, they shouldn't function in the conventional sense, and yeah, but they are still able to develop it. And it's funny because the setting for Warhammer 40k is that humanity's been around for many millennia. They lost all the old technology, but the key thing is that the orcs are constantly innovating, developing new technology that they don't know how it works, but it works and it does something. And I think that's where perhaps one of the things I wanted to come to is the idea that, why I'm bringing up Fortish and League of Legends and sort of animation style is simply because I think in a world where there's a lot of not push, but yeah, well, there is a big hype and push for artificial intelligence. You can see with the new Google VO3, they're definitely looking at Hollywood as an industry. And I think one of the key things I'm also, Kara as a platform stands for in terms of for artists, like, being true and authentic. This work is not done by AI, and then you have Midjourney coming in and saying everyone can create, art, and you have this thing where, can we trust what we see? Can we trust online? I mean, especially if you consider, like, for example, Reddit and like AI research. I think in the last couple of weeks there was unethical research AI on Reddit, but also I think OpenAI did research on Reddit as well. I think it's on the Change Your Mind. I believe, yeah, someone did it. I'm not going to pop that open, but I think the key thing is the development of unique styles, the development of unique animations and unique interactions and gameplay. One must really think about how that is affected, because I'm going to bring this back to the research for a little bit, because I want to give some more context. Is that when in a world, this is the part that I'm researching towards, when in a world where dynamic extended reality becomes true, where regardless of whether you're on your computer, you have glasses like Meta's Ray-Bans or Google's future glasses, and your physical environment is changing, and you have these real-time algorithms that can generate new versions of reality for you and adapt to your context, as included to your environment. What then does a very specific art style, very specific view, how does it express that reality? And I think there'll come a time where, yes, I mean, the art itself is an expression of a certain mindset, of a certain view. I mean, there's so many different animation art styles out there, and different ways to animate, and different beliefs, and there will always be that, because I think as humans we will always not be able to merge our realities, our different constructs of realities together. And I think that's where that expression comes in. That's where art comes to play, because if you think about art as an expression, it is simply because objectivity, in terms of like the idea of science, fails to explain why we are still, I won't say illogical, but still striving for, I guess if you think about like Maslow's hierarchy of need, then it would be the realization of self, and more than that, the realization of self in context with society. And I think that's where I want to bring up Claire Obscure Expedition 33, because games as a whole, I mean, especially when you think about like AAA games and the way the machine works in terms of developing a lot of taking a lot of human effort. I mean, you have teams of 150 to 300 or even more coming together to put the cumulative work hours to develop a singular piece of media entertainment that's interactive and immersive and putting this out. And yet, at the same time, we have great indie hits like Balatro, but also, Expedition 33, which was developed by 30 people, right? And bringing into bear their passions as well. And the game has great narrative, it has great interactions. Overall, it is cohesive because it has that passion, it has that belief, right? And we trust in it that there won't be some random microtransaction popping up and breaking that immersion. We trust that, the story itself will play out in the way that is emotional as a trailer provides, right? In that sense, the design of it. So bringing back the idea of that skill, right? A skill to play the game, which it does. This game does have, and the context of it, which is right now dealing with a world where larger gaming corporations, we can't trust them anymore, and then the last bit is the choice, right? Our choice as players to play a game, but also to in the game to choose how we play. Right, and if everything is just a live service game, would we still have that same, skill, choice, and narrative? I wonder, right? And I think Expedition 33 also is a great connection to the idea of, for those who come after, because every media we make isn't just it lasts, it exists, especially with now with digital media, it continues on and on. And so over here, I think by SWFT, they did a little montage of Endor's Mon Mothma speech. I don't want to spoil it for you if you're watching Endor. This is in the latest season. But it's a very good speech that brings into context that is powerful in our current context. Right? And that's where I'll jump over here because I think one of the things here is like this is what's happened recently. But I wanted to point out, I think if I can just grab the, I think there's a map by Reuters. I think it's a very good map. There you go. I'll do that later, but you can see it doesn't just affect what the narrative tells you, it affects everything. It affects the world. We live in an entirely globalized world already. Our actions don't stop at our country's borders anymore. They don't stop at the sea or in different lands. They ripple around the world. And I think that's what's tough. It's especially with all the different streaming platforms. I'm using them right now, like YouTube, Twitch. I think that's what makes it crazy is the idea that our individual choices can go beyond ourselves, and how do we reconcile that, right? How do we manage that? And so because we can't right now, I'm not sure if we even have the education or the skills to even reconcile how our individual choices can create giant ripples around the world. It's not possible, I think, in our current context right now. But perhaps that's where extended reality can come in, right? It gives us perhaps the ability to actually understand different dynamic social contexts that we may not have the possibility to. And beyond providing us personalization and tools, it's really the idea of like, if you put yourself into someone else's shoes, what would that reality, how would your reality change? And yeah, and I think that's where I wanted to, well, this is just a AMV, but I think the show itself is Freewriting, and Freewriting talks about if you had a long life, maybe nearing immortality and so much time to have knowledge, but a big part of Freewriting isn't about how powerful she is or how how she takes power. It's about the idea of knowledge, and over time, I think Freeman also comes to understand the social context of who she is and where is her place in the world. And the choices and her experiences from before lead to the present as well. I mean, from the demons that she's fought from a long time ago to the demons she's fighting now, and the way that's changed. This idea of the interplay between past, present, and future. And I think Freeman gives that perspective because humans don't live as long as obviously as Freeman does. And in our real lives, we also don't have that long-term perspective. And so in 100 years, we chose, I guess in 100, well, we don't even live to 100 years. Male expectancy is what, 76 years average globally or less. We, such a short time frame to consider different lives that I think we choose differently, right? And I think that's where the Veritasium thing comes into play, which is, the idea that, PFCs exist everywhere. And I think this has been going on online for a long time. And I think one of the key things that is tough is, we make technology, for instance, PFCs, Teflon, they were revolutionary at that time, but not knowing the issues of it, right? And that's the bleeding edge. That's I mean, they're two different terms, bleeding edge, cutting edge, and but they both talk about, well, the violence that's inherent in it, in the sense that, like, cutting edge, you can take off a knife of the ability to to break systems, to cut existing processes, to change. And that's what we're seeing, right? Like, cutting edge emerging technology has that power inherent in it to control, to enslave, to change. But it also has, on the flip side, if you think about cutting edge and bleeding edge as perhaps inherently violent and disruptive of current processes and mindsets, but at the same time being able to empower and multiply. So there's this balance that has to happen between the divisions that technology causes and the multiplication of and empowerment of humanity, what I would call, well, inspired from previous unconferences, is the idea of flourishing edges. And I think the idea that technology can not only cut and divide and bleed, but also grow, also flower and create perhaps, this new propellant or innovation into the future to propel us into a right direction. And you see that with data centers and AI usage as well, right? The idea that right now AI is going to be utilizing a lot of power in the coming days and futures if we don't do anything. The amount of demand is going to outstrip a lot of things, and that's a concern because we have to weigh, the amount of AI that we're utilizing right now. Is it, are we utilizing it to create productive work? Are we utilizing it to create beneficial stuff for the world while utilizing resources that are scarce? And so that balance happens, but it is hidden. It's not something we can do anything about individually sometimes, and we can do our part, but collectively, and this includes corporations, governments, and everything in between, down to the individual human, is that collective action is not easy. And right now, collective action, if you go online, like, into different platforms and all, it's very algorithmically driven. And I think that in itself makes it tough to actually figure out what really is truth, or perhaps, just like To Be Hero says, what really is trust. What is the trust value that we have? Because it's not quantified for us. And yeah, that brings me back to, this very first freewheeling, free flowing log, and rather technology engages us as humans. And my belief has always been, if we treat the human not as data, but as actually complex humans that are fuzzy, that have inherent qualities that are qualitative, that struggle to be quantified, then yes, we to be explained, then perhaps our technology can evolve beyond systems of competition, systems of hierarchy, systems of scarcity, right? In the sense that, yeah, we're going to run out of resources, we don't do anything. And that brings into the idea of like donor economics, the idea of like sustainability. At the same time, it's tough to see the collective action of that. And so that's the social part of the technology, is that when you talk about social media, it's less about, I mean, perhaps it started from getting us to connect to each other, to think and talk. And yes, it has that benefit, but yes, it accelerated globalization, but at the same time, what else can it do, right? And beyond power and capital and control, can social extended reality give us new stories, can give us new ways to connect, but most importantly, can re-architect our way of designing technology rather than it being algorithm to drive engagement, to drive profit, to drive control, through media. Perhaps it's about exploration, about, I won't even talk about utopia, but about innovation, about positive impacts. Impact is in itself very vague, so I would say the ability for us to actually see each other as human beings and not data points. And we architect our technology to do that. And overall, technology becomes not just technological design and technological constructs, but social constructs that empower the sense that humans are not alone, that we are social creatures, that we have that. Right then. So yeah, thank you.